Okay, we're going to practice some percent proportions. So let's just have a quick reminder that when we're doing our percent proportions, we have part over total is equal to percent over 100. So one of the biggest parts of this is deciding, are we looking for the part, the total, the percent, or the well, we always have the 100. So let's do this first question. While mining, Jess found a large metal bar that contained 18 pounds of silver. Jess also determined that the bar was 75% silver. What was the total weight of the metal bar in pounds? Round your answer to the nearest whole number if necessary. So let's talk about what we know. We know the percent. So we know it's going to be 75 over 100 because the 100 always stays the same. So are we looking for the part or the total? Well, it says what was the total weight. So that means we're solving for the total. And we have the part. It said that there were 18 pounds of silver. So there was 18 right there. So now I know I have 18 over x equals 75 over 100. So we have to solve the problem. One of the things you can do is cross products. So I can do 18 times 100, which would be 1800 or 1800, equals 75 times x, which is 75x. And then I can solve it like an equation, which means I divide both sides by 75. So I'm going to do 1800 divided by 75. Okay, so does 75 go into 1? No. Does it go into 18? No. 1800? Yes. How many times? Okay, well, if I think about quarters, 75 cents plus 75 cents would be $1.50. Another 70 would be more than that. So it would be more than 180. So that's going to be 2, which is 150. Subtract, and I get 30, and bring down my 0. Okay, now how many times can 75 go into 300? Okay, let's think about this. So if I just think about my multiples of 75, I know I have 75, then 150, then think that would be 75 cents would be $2, $2.25, like $2.25, and then $3 says or 300. So that's multiplying it times 4. So that means my answer is 24. Now what are we talking about? 24 pounds. So what was the total weight of the metal bar? That's 24 pounds. Okay, this next question. One baseball team played 40 games throughout their entire season. If this baseball team won 85% of those games, then how many games did they win? Round your answer to the nearest whole number if necessary. So I know my percent. So that means when I have this equal, it's going to be 85 over 100. And I have part over total. So do I know the part or do I know the total? It says one baseball team played 40 games throughout their entire season. And then we want to know how many they won. So how many they won would be the part. And 40 would be the total. So we know their total. We're looking for the part. So what I have to do, there's several ways we could do this, but one way is the cross products that we've talked about. So we can do 85 times 40 equals 100 times x. So I know 100x, obviously. And I need to do 85 times 40. So I know that if I'm doing 85 times 40, 0 times all that is just 0. Okay, and then I can just start with my 4 times 5. 4 times 5 is 20, carry my 2. 4 times 8 is 32, plus 2 is 34. So that's 3,400 equals 100x. So now I know, like I'm just going to solve this equation, which means I would divide both sides by 100. And I know I can just kind of cancel those zeros out. So 34 divided by 1 is 34. So my answer is 34 games won, because that's what we're talking about, right? How many games did they win? and they won 34 games. Okay, 22 of the students in the geometry class passed the geometry test. If these students are 55% of all the students in the class, how many students are in the geometry class? So again, I know my percent is 55 out of 100 because percent means out of 100. Now, I know 22 of the students in a geometry class passed. So, and I'm looking how many students are in the geometry class. So the 22, that's a part of the entire class. So that's a part. So that's going to go here. And I'm looking for X, the total that are in the class. So again, I can do those cross products that we've talked about. So I'm going to do 22 times 100, which would be 2200 or 2200 equals 55x. So to solve this, I would be dividing both sides by 55. So I have 2200 divided by 55. So let's do this. 2200 divided by 55. Okay, 55 doesn't go into 2 or 22. So we need to decide how many times it goes into 220. Okay, I know that 55, like 50 would go into 204 times. So how many times would 55 go in there? So let's do 55 times 4. Just because I know 50 times 4 is 200, and that's close, right? So 4 times 5 is 20, carry my 2. 4 times 5 is 20, plus 2 is 220. So that means it's going to go in there 4 times, which is 220. Subtract and I get 0. That doesn't mean my answer is 4, because think about it. We're looking for how many students are in the geometry class. It wouldn't make sense to say there's 4 students in the geometry class. I still have this 0 right here that I have to bring down. So that means I can just bring that up. So it's really 40. And that's why it's so important to know what we're talking about, to make sure that you don't make a simple mistake like that. If you would have said 4 and you didn't know what that 4 represented, it would be easy to say it was 4. But if you knew we're talking about how many students, it would be kind of a red flag, like, hey, how can there be 4 students total? Like 22 students pass the test, but there's only 4 students? Doesn't make sense. So that's kind of a little indicator, like, hey, like we messed up somewhere. So my answer is 40 students total. And remember, like 55%, that's a little over half. And isn't 22 a little over half of 40? Because 20 would be half of 40. So 22 is a little over a half. So sometimes just using like estimation and things, that can help us see, like, is our answer reasonable? All right, let's do the next problem. Okay, at a construction job for a mansion, there are 44 painters. Of these painters, 50% of them paint the interior of the mansion. How many painters are painting the interior? Well, it tells me my percent is 50, and I know my percent's always over 100. And then we have part over total. So we want to know how many painters are painting the interior. So that's like a part of it, right? Out of how many painters total? 44. So whatever X is talking about painters, right? Painters that are painting the interior. So it's kind of a good idea to know like what this is referring to. We can do cross products, but y'all, sometimes there's just easier ways to do it. If I'm talking about 50%, I'm talking about half, right? Isn't 50 half of 100? So what's half of 44? 22. So that means this has to be 22. So my answer would be 22 painters. That's how many are working on the interior. Okay, let's do another problem. Okay, in one particular suburb, there are 38 families that own a bulldog. If there are a total of 40 families that own a dog in general, then what percentage of dog owners have a bulldog? It's a lot of people that have bulldogs. Okay, so I'm looking for the percentage. So I know when I have this percent proportion, I know that I'm looking for that percentage. So that one makes it a lot easier. I know it's 38 over 40, right? So That one, again, is a lot easier. So now I just need to solve it. Again, you can use those cross products. That's 3,800, and then this would be 40x. So we've done enough solving equations. We know that we would divide both sides by 40, right? So if I'm going to do 3,800 divided by 40, you can essentially just kind of cross out those zeros because they'll cancel each other out, and just do 380 divided by 4. Again, we've done enough of this that we should know that we could do that, right? So we're going to do 380 divided by 4. 4 doesn't go into 3, but it'll go into 38 9 times, which is 36. Subtract, I get 2 and bring down my 0. So how many times is 4 going to 20? 5 times, which is 20. Subtract, and I get 0. So my answer is 95. 95 what? 95 bulldogs? 94 families? No, 95%. So 95% of the families own bulldogs. Again, that's a lot of people that own bulldogs. Okay, this next problem. At a local department store, jackets typically cost $25. However, due to a special, the jackets are reduced to $10. What percent of the original price has the jackets been reduced to? Okay, so I'm looking for the percent of the original price. And I know that they're usually, so I know equals something over 100, and I'm looking for that percent. So that's where the X is. Okay, so I know that the total is $25, right? And then the new cost is 10. So it's $10 out of $25. So I want to know what percent is the what has it been reduced to? So again, I can do those cross products, right? Okay, so, but you know what? We can do cross products, but sometimes you can just kind of do the other, sometimes there's easier ways to do it. I know 25 to 100 is times 4. So I can do right here times 4. And there you go. It makes it a lot easier. What's 10 times 4? 40. So that means it's 40%. So what percent of the original price is it? It's 40% of the original price. That's a good sale. I would like to have this, these jackets. I want to get a sale where I'm only paying 40% because that means it had to be 60% off, right? Okay, so those are just some examples. And so again, when you're doing these percent proportions, the important thing is to remember that we're looking for the part over total equals percent out of 100. So if you can set up that proportion, then we can solve it. You just have to decide, what information do I have and what am I looking for? I hope this helps.